Hello and welcome to those endless mysteries. Today we are going to be going over part 2 of a Dogman sighting from August the 2nd of 2020. Now I want to give you Brittany's story as it happened to her. Now Brittany says as they rounded the bend in the trail that they noticed something big laying on its side, but it was moving strangely and making loud growling sounds. She says that she didn't know what it was at first. Then, as we were looking at this thing moving funny, at least to me anyway, she said, then I noticed something was starting to rise up on the other side of this thing. After just a few seconds, I realized that it was a huge wolf's head. It had big ears with what looked like brown eyes with a gold circle and flakes in the brown. Its head was covered with blood as it rose up. All I remember is that I was trying to scream, but nothing was coming out. I don't remember much after that. I don't know if I hyperventilated or if I just passed out from the fear. The next thing I remember is Stacy and Cindy screaming at me, asking me if I was okay. Then I heard my husband's voice asking me if I was okay also. Then I remember him telling me to calm down and catch my breath, which was being difficult for some reason. I just remember shaking and not really knowing why. I know it took a few minutes before I could stand up. Then it all came back to me. I could remember everything. I started to hyperventilate again. Well, Steve was telling me again just to calm down, slow your breathing. So I started focusing on his voice only. I do remember Steve asking everyone what happened, with Cindy saying it was a werewolf, a real friggin' werewolf. Then we all headed back to camp. Whatever it was scared me. It really scared me, she said. I truly only remember its head coming over the deer and trying to scream and not being able to. Then just waking up on the ground. Nothing really more after that. But she says that she has also seen this thing in her dreams. So the only thing I can say to Brittany is, I hope you can come to terms with it as well. And if you need help, try to use Steve as a release and talk to him and her friends. That they all need to support each other over the hard days. Now let's try to look at this sighting through Cindy's story of the encounter. I truly enjoyed talking with Cindy. She's one of those southern no bullshit women. She tells it like it is, no sugarcoating with her at all. So the language will be a little more raw in this section of the encounter report. But it was so much fun listening to her side of the story. I remember asking her, what do you think you saw that day? Then she came right back at me, saying it was a MFing werewolf. I don't care what the others said. I know what I saw that day was a damn werewolf. I know it was during the daytime, but it was a werewolf, or dogman as you might call it now. I remember coming around the bend and seeing something off to the right. It looked like a big deer, but it sounded like it was growling. Then I noticed David started pulling his pistol out. Then I noticed what looked like dog ears coming up over the dead deer. It was coming up slow until its eyes seemed to see us. Then the rest of its head started to clear the deer a little faster. At first I thought to myself, what a effing big dog. It was covered with blood. It had strange looking eyes, though. I've never seen a dog with eyes like that before, she said. But it didn't stop with its head coming up over the deer. It started standing up over the deer. It was huge. And when I say huge, I mean effing huge, she said. Then, when I noticed arms on this thing, I really started freaking out. About now, I think I heard Stacy scream, "Are you okay, Brittany?" That's when I turned to see Stacy kneeling down and Brittany on the ground, just laying there. I remember thinking, what the hell? The girl done fainted. That's when I think the first shot went off, she said. At that moment, I looked back at this creature and it looked really pissed. At that moment, I really wanted to run, just run and get out of there. Then I heard Stacy saying Brittany's name again. Then another shot rang out. When this creature took another step, with this thing looking as if that one kind of hurt it. As I was looking back to Brittany, I noticed that its legs looked really strange. The knees didn't look right. It happened so fast, but I know something was off about its knees. Then with the third shot, I saw in this creature's face that it knew it had messed up. Just as it turned to its right, and with a fourth shot it was gone. I think it stayed on two legs, but I'm not for sure, because I looked back to Brittany. The next thing I can remember is hearing Steve, Brittany's husband, who kind of slid to a stop on his knees next to me, taking Brittany's hand, saying, "Brittany, are you okay? Are you okay?" Which she was already coming to when he got there. That's when I saw Bob, my husband, standing next to David with his gun out as well. I knew we was going to be okay at that point. Don't get me wrong, I was scared and thought about running at one point. I just realized that David was shooting and we needed to get Brittany up. So we all could run if we needed to. But once I saw my husband, it was like every worry I had just left and I just knew we would be okay at this point. After being that scared and terrified, then you just feel safe. It's hard to explain the feeling that came over me. Cindy was a tough one for sure. Just remember in her own words, I saw a MFing werewolf. A werewolf, I say. So what about Bob and Steve? What did they see and think about what happened that day? So let's start with what Steve remembers about the day in question. So Steve says that after they got back from a supply run, him and Bob started heading up the trail so they could meet up with the others on their way back. They were about an hour and a half or more into their hike to meet up with the others when they heard a gunshot. Knowing that David had his pistol with him, that something must have been happening. So Steve and Bob started running towards the shot. When another shot rang out, Steve looked at Bob again and began to run even harder, knowing that they must truly be in some trouble. Then a third and fourth shot went out. It was only a few seconds after hearing the fourth shot, maybe 10 to 15 seconds, Steve said. As they got closer, he saw Brittany laying flat on the ground, with Cindy and Stacy on each side of her, with David standing off to the left. Steve says that Brittany was conscious as he got to her, but that she was terrified of something, that he was trying to calm her down, that she was breathing way too fast. He noticed that Stacy and Cindy was very upset also, that he couldn't get much out of them until Cindy cried out, "It was a werewolf! It was a werewolf!" That's when David looked down at them. Then David said it was, wasn't it, Cindy? Then Stacy said it had to be. That's the only thing it could have been. Then Steve says that he was able to get Brittany calmed down and back to her feet, and they started heading back to camp. While trying to take in what everyone was saying, he said that he never saw any creature, but that he believes his wife and friends saw a monster that day. So that's Steve's account of what happened. So let's jump into Bob's account. Bob said that they were around 100 yards or so away from Cindy and the others when they heard their first shots ring out. So they started running towards the shot, knowing that their wives were up there somewhere. Then came a second and third shot, followed by a fourth. As they were running up the trail, when they finally saw them, they were about 20 feet away. We saw Brittany on the ground with Stacy and Cindy being on each side of her, while David was about 6 to 8 feet to their left with his gun pointed out in front of him. So not knowing what was happening, Bob said that he pulled out his pistol and walked up beside David. He said he could hear Steve talking to Brittany. Then Bob said he asked David what was going on. Was it a bear or what? But he said David was just staring off into the woods with a strange look upon his face. Then Bob says that Cindy screamed out, "A werewolf, a MFing werewolf." Then Bob said David said something like, "It was a werewolf, wasn't it?" Then Stacy was, "Yes, it was." So I didn't know what to think at that time. So I think I said something like, "What, a werewolf?" So I knew something had scared them. I did believe that for sure. But in the back of my head, I didn't really believe they saw a werewolf that day. But now, after listening to all their stories and knowing that how this event has affected everyone, I do believe they saw a werewolf or dogman, as you call them, said Bob. So that was Bob's account. We were there taking these interviews only 3 days after the sighting happened. After interviewing the witnesses, Bob and Steve took us up to where this event happened. We did find a spot where the deer carcass was. There wasn't much of the deer left, just a couple of bones and a patch of hide. So at this point, myself and a couple of friends that had came with me decided to camp for a few days. We went deeper into the woods and set up camp, hoping to find some evidence that the creature might still be in the area. But I'm sorry to say, we didn't catch anything on our trail camps, or did we hear or see anything. But after talking to the witnesses, seeing just how much this sighting affected them, the four main witnesses in this case, David, Stacy, Brittany, and Cindy, truly had a hair-raising encounter. They truly experienced something out of the ordinary. These strange paranormal events causes a lot of ridicule from those that have never had a experience. But for those that do experience these strange encounters, their lives change forever, and not for the best most of the time. Because once you know these creatures are out there, then you change. I mean, truly change. You give up on doing the things you used to love to do, like camping. These three couples may never go camping again. Their lives may never be the same again. As an investigator, I've met a lot of people throughout my years. Some comes to grip with what they had seen, while others never are the same again. So with that said, this was another one of those endless mysteries. So till next time, have a great day, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you can keep up with all of our latest videos. And thanks for watching those endless mysteries.